As educational leaders with a global perspective, we recognize that learning and leading are intrinsically linked to the emotional and social dynamics present within every organization. Our research has shifted the focus from asking why to exploring how, prioritizing practical strategies that empower individuals to engage meaningfully with their workplace and community. By sharing our stories and proven practices, we emphasize the importance of social emotional leadership as the cornerstone for cultivating a sense of belonging among members of your workforce. Through intentional development of emotional intelligence and relationship building skills, individuals are equipped not only to thrive professionally, but also to enrich their personal lives. This approach encourages the formation of habits centered on active participation and ownership, transforming organizational culture and community engagement. By fostering emotional leadership, we pave the way for lasting change, where every member feels valued, connected, and capable of contributing to shared success.
It's your thing. Do what you wanna do. I can't tell you what the song get to. Said it's your thing. Do what you wanna do.
Welcome to Habit Over Why, episode 12. I am Jeevan, your host, and this is
Claudia Bordelucci.
And this is the podcast where we tell you why and show you how.
That's right.
Today we'll be talking about getting the right people on the bus and getting the wrong people off the bus and what you need to do to hire for culture. My situation is this. Recently, we've had some really good luck with some of the staff I have. They've gone on to lists where they're moving on to leadership spots. We have a whole whack of people leaving the school. The administration team, we're going to get a new principal, new office staff. So basically, we're starting from the bottom again. And so we thought we'd do an episode on how to rebuild your team.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're going to be doing today. Claudio.
Yeah, I think, rebuilding your team and hiring staff, it's an important piece of the puzzle when it comes to any organization. And people come to you with a resume or a vitae. You can call it whatever you want, but that highlights all of the things that they've done, to get the interview. But really, you want to know the character of the person, and the interview is not just the opportunity to highlight their skills, but to find out more about their character and how
So what would you do in my spot? So right now you're decimated, right? So I even have a new principal coming over. So that in itself is going to be a little bit different because we kind of we have a culture where we co-created a vision, and now that vision might change depending on who's on top. But besides that, for me, what I've learned over the time is technical skills can be built on if you have the right people on the bus, but character and relationships, those are hard things to come by these days.
Mm-hmm.
So I am now in a position where I have to hire multiple staff, 7, 8, 9 staff. So I have a script that's been given to me from past administrators with questions. Some of those questions I think are relevant today. Some of them are not, but they're more hiring for like technical things. Now, you were an experienced principal for over 32 years, administrator. Now, whether it's a school or whether it's an organization, what are the top 3, 4 characteristics that you look for in a person when you're hiring for culture?
I think, this podcast is about trust and belonging. So I think in an interview, you're looking for people that could belong to your organization. And so I think you want to ask them questions about themselves, about their family, get to know you deeper questions as opposed to, have you ever built a lesson plan, or can you lead the marketing team through a sales pitch? If people are hired for those jobs or applying for those jobs, they can probably do them. But you want to know that somebody has the character or the work ethic when the going gets tough. Are they going to be there for you? So I think you start asking inquiry type questions about that.
Okay, so pretend I'm the person you're that's on the hot seat, and you're trying to figure out my character, what's a question you would ask to?
So I'd ask you about your family. So tell me a little bit about your family, your upbringing. Where did you go to high school? Can you think of a specific memory that shaped you when you were in university? What kind of volunteer work did you do? I would ask those kinds of questions, not questions about can you build a lesson plan, or have you ever taught an ELL lesson, or how would you integrate ELL? Because I think most teachers, given the right tools and the right circumstances, can do those things. But I don't know that people have the will or the grit or the character to do them really well and
Yeah,
foster success for
yeah,
everybody.
that's interesting you'd ask about their family because, I mean, when you think about family, you think about family values too, right? So out of those stories, you can kind of maybe have you been in a situation where people start talking about their families and talk about, my dad passed down this value or my mom passed
All
down
the
this
time.
all the
In fact,
time.
that's why you start there, because and if they don't bring it up, well, that tells you something about them as well.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I'm in the hot seat to tell you how my dad immigrated to Canada with $6.50. He worked at mills. He ended up opening his own mill. All he wanted from his kids to have education. So he supported us while we went to school. And I decided when my little brother, who's 11 years younger than me, came along, I really liked to volunteer at a school. So that's where I grew my passion for teaching. And that's why I got into teaching. Went to my old principal from elementary school to see if I could volunteer there. And the first thing he said is, It's about time." So now the audience can kind of see that there's a dialogue where you're getting a lot of value out of me. So you're getting the value of, hard work. I've been through university. My dad, I use the word sacrificed. So I understand that getting an education can be a sacrifice for some people. And because it's a sacrifice and you want it that bad, then you also value it even more than maybe another person would have if you didn't ask the question. So yeah, now the audience can kind of see how you can bring up a value when you ask them questions about their family and their upbringing. I could
And
talk about how I played sports. You could talk about how you played sports. So I could ask you, Claudio, you played a lot of soccer. Tell me a little bit about it.
yeah, how did it shape you as an adult?
Yes. So let's do a mock interview here. Tell me a little bit about your soccer career.
Yeah, so I started really young. My parents, immigrant people, they didn't have enough money to give me skates and hockey equipment. So they said, here's a pair of soccer boots and a ball and go have at it. And
Yeah.
I fell in love with the game and I became really good at it. I would go and practice on my own by kicking a ball against a wall. And somebody said to me, you're really good. You should start playing. And I played juvenile soccer. I got scouted by the BC team and the national team. And yeah, I continued to make those efforts to stay fit and work out, to become a team player. Um, I played a specific position, but I prided myself on being able to play any of the positions on the field. So if a coach said I need a left winger, I'd put my hand up and say I can play left wing, even though I couldn't kick the ball with my left foot. I would still
Yeah.
go out there and do it. And
Yeah.
I actually became a really good left-footed player. I can kick with both feet right now. So I think that I learned a lot. I learned a lot playing high-level sports. I learned the politics of sports. I learned that even though I was a better player, they chose other players because they were from different geographical regions of the province or the country, and they did that strategically because I'd been given so many opportunities that other people needed opportunities too, even though I was a far better player than they were. And that was okay. I learned disappointment and how to be resilient from disappointment. Um, and so I think I would be looking for those kinds of things from people because I think, again, part of what we talk about is in a big scope and sequence kind of thing is assessment for learning,
Yeah.
reflection, and feedback. And so I think when you're interviewing people, you're looking for that reflection and feedback while you're asking those questions.
Yeah.
And so, if somebody says to me, I learned a lot from sports because I didn't make every team, but I worked harder and I got better, as opposed to somebody that says, yeah, I made the national team and I went to university and yeah, I got married, I had kids. I don't know that I would hire that person just
Yeah.
because.
So even sitting here talking to you about your soccer, look, so I asked to the audience an open-ended question, like, tell me about your soccer career. I didn't hone in on any part of the soccer career, but you touched upon teamwork, you touched upon sacrifice, you touched upon when you hit a roadblock, what do? Right? You don't run away from it, you don't blame others. You took responsibility for it and you work that much harder to make sure that you get over that obstacle.
I think if somebody doesn't give you that information, you shouldn't hold them hostage. You should say, so I want to dig a little bit deeper and I want to ask you about, a difficult time. Tell me when you had a difficult time and how you made it better or you resolved it. So
Yep.
now I'm putting the
Having some technical difficulties here with Claudio's camera here. Hopefully it'll come back. I can hear Claudio a little bit here.
I touched one of the.
No worries. We can go on.
So I would give them that opportunity to give me a situation where that made a difference in their lives.
So yeah, so just kind of like if they're not touching upon the actual connection to leadership or that you needed, just asking another open-ended question and giving them that pathway to where you need to go so that you're not excluding a great employee just because you didn't ask the right questions and didn't give them the opportunity, because not everybody is good at interviews. Like you should be reading their CV, you should be reading their cover letters, you should be reading their philosophies if they've handed them in, and reference letters in order to kind of get an idea of who the person is. I mean, obviously they're high caliber if they made it through the first round. So that's a really good technique to make sure that, to understand that not everybody is good at interviewing and that you kind of sometimes need to lead them through the path to the answer that you need without, just being straightforward.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That's a
So,
big.
yeah, go ahead.
No, I think that's a big ticket item is that, something that we've talked about before, active listening and making sure that you're actually the active listener within that process. And
So we've kind of talked about values, so like family values and how to kind of figure out the value of the individual in front of you. We've talked about a question about how to frame an obstacle that you've gone through in order to understand the reflection process and how the person thinks when they're given an obstacle or a challenge. Like, are they able to finish that reflection feedback loop that we've talked about in other episodes?
exactly.
Yeah. Now we've talked about a little bit about values, and then how do you get in something about culture, like having relationships with other people without saying, hey, you know what, tell me about a time where you had a challenge with an employee and what was the outcome? So do you have a way of kind of finessing or a different way of asking that?
4 jobs that you've had.
Sorry, Claudia, you had muted it for a second there.
No, can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you now.
Yeah. So I instead of articulating it specifically with a person, I would talk to the fact that, is give me a situation within an organization where you felt that you enhanced the culture or where you saw there was challenges in the culture in the organization, and what would you do differently next time to support that culture. Those would be the things that I would be saying.
So that's to get into kind of challenges within the culture and what the person would have.
Correct.
So it could be like, so my answer could be like, hey, you know what? I worked with a group of people that kind of had a different philosophy of how the project should be going based on their values. And we were having difficulties. We were butting heads. I wasn't seeing it their way. They weren't seeing it my way. I had to take a couple steps backward, thought about it, and then came back and said, hey, I think we need to create some kind of boundaries or see where everybody's coming from, because this is where I'm coming from in my perception of what's happening. I want
Yeah,
I want to know what your perception is and where you're coming from. And then
exactly.
once we were able to get that, we were able to get perspective, because then we're taking in everybody's information. And then we were able to move along, because they were understanding where I was coming from. I was understanding where they were coming from, but we also agreed on the end goal, which we wanted this project to be successful. And then therefore we were able to create a school-wide reading program that was successful for all staff and students, and we were able to track their behavior. So
Yeah.
so that is a little bit about how to do that. Uh, Now, just kind of moving on to, I work at a community school. One of the things is it's different than a regular school because we're funded a little bit differently. We have a community coordinator. Now, one thing I find is when people come from other schools, they don't realize how much work that's entailed, maybe before and after school, or even at lunch and recess, because we're bound by some rules here. Like, there's teachers don't have to supervise during recess or lunch, sorry. But at community schools, sometimes it's different, even though it's not coded within. You have to be out there and you have to be building these relationships with kids, running different programs. How do you work that into like kind of an interview question?
Um, yeah, that would take a bit more time to think and deliberate about. But like I think you want to talk about like professionalism and uh, outside of the 9 to 3 kind of job, because in community schools it's not about 9 to 3. It's about the hot lunch program, showing up earlier for kids, staying after school to listen to kids and some of their problems. There's more at play for kids in community schools, because there's obviously some impoverishment most of the time,
Yeah.
and that's something you have to deal with, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I was thinking, like, I was kind of developing a question about, like, tell me what you know about community schools, or what you want to know about community schools, and then leading
right.
them into like, very open ended, like, hey, I know this about community schools, just to kind of get an idea then maybe of like, okay, do they know that there's other programs that are running at these times, or do they know that it takes a little bit more, it's more time intensive? And if they don't, then asking questions about, oh, what is a community school? And then you can kind of give your little segue into what community schools are and what kind of programs they offer. And then I would ask, like, now knowing about community schools, where do you see yourself fitting in?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think, yeah, I think that, asking questions is a skill, and you don't want to prompt them too much. You want to leave it as open-ended as possible,
Yeah.
so that they give you their authentic version of what it is that they think they should be giving you, not
Right.
what you want them to say. Yeah, it's a tough thing to do that, but it's important to do that too.
Oh, totally, totally.
Yeah,
So one thing is tools. So leaders were about the how to. Is back in the day, you don't have to scribe. Some people like to scribe when they're having interviews and they have the interview questions printed and they're writing down. What I do is I actually tell the person, like, hey, I open up Word and then I have the questions out there and I read out the questions and say, you know what, I'm just going to put the dictation on and we're just having a conversation here. And then what I
exactly.
do is the first couple questions is a little rough because then you have to turn off the dictation, kind of go ahead into question two, then turn it back on. But as the interview goes on, you'll see that the person you're interviewing kind of get used to that method. So use that, because then it saves you from focusing on scribing, and you can actually authentically, like, really listen to what the person is saying, and you can always go back to it. And now when you go back to it, another tool, and this is another how tip, is throw it into AI, throw it into Copilot, throw it into ChatGPT. There's so many places where you can throw it into and say, hey, look, I'm looking for a person like this, and put in your prompts and play with it. And this excerpt, can you take out the things that relate to teamwork and how they relate to teamwork? Can you take out things that relate to values and how there he is, we got you back.
It's
What,
becoming
yeah, we can hear you.
okay.
Just how you can actually, so using AI, you can say, how does this relate to the person's values, personal values, and can it give me examples? So you can use AI as a tool then in the how to afterwards to analyze it too. I wouldn't use it first. What I would do is look at the data after you've had the interview yourself to make your own decisions. And then I would use it secondary. It would be a secondary option just to kind of hone in on the best person for the job. Claudia, you're off again here, bud.
Yeah, there's
There you go. You're on.
okay. I'll try not to.
We're pushing through here. That's what we do, right?
Yeah.
Talk about a feedback loop right now. So we have your audio. We got you live. But yeah, so I mean, just summing this up here, is interviews are more than just questions. You want to hone in on the values that your organization actually holds and the vision that you're looking for. And ask open-ended questions, value questions like, how was your upbringing? That's a value question. You can ask, you know what, if you know that the person has a hobby, you can even ask them like, hey, growing up, did you have any hobbies? Did you play on any sports teams? Did you play any instruments? What experiences did you have outside of school that helped you as a young individual? And leverage that to kind of get an idea of how the person deals with challenges, or do they have interests outside of education where they might have had a challenge or even a success, and you can tell how they work. Open-ended questions are better than self-directed questions, unless you're looking for something really specific. If you're looking for someone who can do certain types of assessment, you can directly ask them, hey, have you done assessment A, B, and C? Where did you get your learning from them? How long have you been doing them? So just to figure that out. But when you're hiring for relationships and you're hiring for a culture, the best thing to do is look at values, look at their vision for themselves, their vision for school, grit. We've talked about grit before, how they overcome obstacles. The soccer analogy was great. Anything else? Any other tips for how to interview a person? Or
I don't think so. You go with a set of questions, but each takes you a different journey. So you need to adapt accordingly to that journey that you're having with that person. And it might be different each time. Pulling things out of people and guiding them in different ways to give them an opportunity to tell you something that you hope they tell you. And then in the end, when you hire somebody, for me, the number one thing is character. Because I think most of those people that you hire, they all have the skill. Otherwise, they wouldn't be applying and they wouldn't be getting this opportunity. So I'm looking for the intangibles. How do they communicate? Are they better at it than the previous few people that you interview? Yeah, that's the kind of thing.
yeah. So I'm going to recap the episode really quickly here. Hire for values, culture, and relationships. Ask open-ended questions. We've given you a few to start off here. Refine those questions over time. Leverage tools like dictation so that you can authentically listen to the person that's in front of you. And then finally, use AI. But don't use AI until you've actually looked through your notes and kind of formulated your opinion of, will this person fit this job profile or this organization? So that's it for this episode of Habit Over Why. We want to thank you for joining us. We know we had some technical difficulties. I purposely left this on. So just to show you guys, sometimes you just got to push through and get these things done. We were able to do it, Claudio, like we do everything else. Again, Claudio, I'll let you know they can find Habit Over Why on.
A bunch of
We're gonna have to do that again. So we can find Habit Over Why on
Spotify, Apple, and a whole bunch of other sites that we bought.
Yep. And then if you need to email us, we love getting emails. It's habitoverwhy@gmail.com. If you liked our episodes, again, I know we were off for a little while. We're trying to refine our episodes here. We're getting into the next level of Habit Over Why. So keep in tune. Watch us, listen to us on your ride home from school, not school, to work. And then also, if you find our episodes value or somebody else would find it valuable in your family or your friends, pass it along, because we would love to inspire more people. That's our goal in the next set of 10 is to inspire more leaders, get more feedback so we can make more relevant content for you.
Agreed.
Jeevan signing off. Claudio, take care, everybody.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Habit Over Why. If you enjoyed our conversation, please consider partnering with us as a sponsor. Why sponsor Habit Over Why? Our listeners are committed to personal growth and professional development. We deliver genuine insights and discussions, ensuring your branding messages are shared in a meaningful way. Our episodes consistently receive positive feedback for the depth and reliability, fostering a loyal listener base that trusts our recommendations. With each episode, our community expands, offering increased visibility and impact. Our listeners come from various backgrounds, all united in a desire for personal and professional growth. This makes our podcast an ideal platform for brands looking to reach out and broaden their audience engagement. We are looking forward to the possibilities of working for you, with you. We can be reached at habitoverwhy@gmail.com, or if you just have any questions about personal and professional development, we'd love to hear from you and answer those questions.